Namaste everyone. We continue today in the first chapter of the Ashtavakra Gita, starting with verse 12. You can repeat after me. Atma sakshi vibhu purna, Atma sakshi vibhu purna, eko muktaschira kriyaha, eko muktaschira kriyaha, asango nispraha shanto, asango nispraha shanto, brahmat samsaravaniva, brahmat samsaravaniva. Here, Ashtavakra restates much of what he has already taught to King Janaka so far. Atma, your true self, pure consciousness, is sakshi, the witness or observer, the awareness that reveals all the activities of your mind. That consciousness is vibhu, vast, and it is purna, perfect. As we saw in previous verses, consciousness has no qualities or attributes of any kind. It has no size, no edges or boundaries, so it is infinite, all-pervasive, vibhu. It has no defects, no flaws or limitations, so it is purna, perfect, full. And further, Ashtavakra says that consciousness is ekaha, one. That which is infinite or all-pervasive, like space, can only be one, because there's no room for anything else. Where could you possibly put a second all-pervasive space, or a second all-pervasive atma? Also, consciousness is mukta, liberated, eternally free, because it's a fundamental reality that was never bound in the first place. And that consciousness, chit, is akriyaha. It's unchanging, immutable. As a fundamental reality, consciousness is free from any attributes, and in the absence of attributes, there's nothing that can change. In the next line, consciousness is asanga, unattached, unrelated. Consciousness itself is non-relational. That means it doesn't exist in the world in relationship with other things. Consciousness is a fundamental reality that transcends the world. For this reason, consciousness is nispraha, indifferent, untouched, unaffected by anything. And finally, consciousness is shanta, peaceful, free from agitation, being free from all attributes. This kind of language is very common in the Ashtavakra Gita and similar texts. Each word here simply describes the nature of Atma in a different way, from a different perspective. As we discussed in detail in the introduction to this text, teachings like this are not actually intended to impart spiritual instruction. They're not really meant to guide your practice of self-inquiry, atma vichara. This is an advanced text, so it's assumed that you have already practiced self-inquiry, and that you have already discovered your true nature as pure consciousness. Ashtavakra knows that King Janaka is already enlightened, and his words here do not convey anything that the king doesn't already know. But that's perfectly okay, because his words are meant for nididhyasana, Vedantic Contemplation, and not for basic spiritual instructions. Many followers of Advaita Vedanta miss this point completely, and they try to extract spiritual instruction from verses like these. But those who are more experienced will approach these verses in a very different way, to use them exclusively for the sake of nididhyasana. Let me show you how. Suppose you approach the verse like this. Atma, the true self. That's me. That's my true nature as pure consciousness. And Atma is Sakshi, the witness. That means I am the pure consciousness by which every thought, emotion, and perception that arises in my mind becomes known. I am the consciousness that reveals the presence or absence of any and all mental activities. Then, Atma is Vibhu, vast. The pure consciousness that is my essential nature is infinite, boundaryless. Since I am infinite consciousness, I cannot possibly be stuck inside this finite body. Then, Atma is Purna, perfect. As pure consciousness, I have no defects or flaws, nothing that's lacking or incomplete, no limitations of any kind. Okay, that's enough. This demonstrates how you can read the verse for the sake of contemplation rather than for the sake of spiritual instruction. Notice the shift in pronouns here. Instead of referring to Atma in the grammatical third person, as a he, she, or it, as most people do, Atma should really be referred to in the first person, I or me. Atma is not an it. Atma is me, my fundamental nature. I am Atma. Everyone begins their study of Vedanta with a third-person perspective. But as you understand these teachings more deeply, you eventually shift to a first-person perspective, like I just demonstrated. Ashtavakra concludes the verse, Brahmat, due to ignorance, due to the failure to recognize your true nature as pure consciousness, samsaravan eva. You seem to be bound. You seem to be an individual person with a body and mind. And as a result, you suffer. As we saw in our previous class, you suffer when you misinterpret your experiences. If you see a rope lying on the ground in a dark alley and you misinterpret the experience by thinking that it's a deadly snake, then you suffer fear. In the same way, if you experience a throbbing sensation in your head and you misinterpret that experience by thinking that a headache can truly affect your essential nature as pure consciousness, then you suffer. Or if you experience sadness and you wrongly conclude that it somehow rubs off on your essential nature as pure consciousness, then you suffer. The solution to this suffering is self-knowledge, the knowledge that you are absolutely okay in spite of headaches, sadness, and the like, because your true nature as pure consciousness remains utterly unaffected by anything you experience. In the next verse, Ashtavakra describes with more detail the nature of Brahma, the ignorance of your true nature that makes you misinterpret your experiences, the ignorance that causes suffering. Kutastam bodham advaitam, kutastam bodham advaitam, atmanam paribhavaya, atmanam paribhavaya, Abhasoham brahmam muktva, Abhasoham brahmam muktva, bhavam bahyamatantaram, bhavam bahyamatantaram. Starting in the second half, Brahmam muktva, liberating yourself or breaking free from Brahma, ignorance. What kind of ignorance? Abhasaha aham. I am this appearance. I am this body and mind. I am this individual person. That ignorance affects you by creating the bhava, the perception or feeling of bahyam, outside, ata, antaram, and inside. When you identify with your body and mind, you naturally feel a sense of inside and outside. You feel a sense of I-ness with regard to your body and mind, and for everything else in the world around you, you feel a sense of otherness. But when your practice of self-inquiry finally leads you to completely remove every last shred of identification with your body and mind, then these distinctions between inside and outside, or between I-ness and otherness, these distinctions become meaningless. In the first half of the verse, Ashtavakra gives some very specific instructions for nididhyasana. He says, paribhavaya, you should contemplate on atma, your true self, which is bodha, pure consciousness. And he specifies that you should contemplate on atma in two different ways, as being kutastha, unchanging, eternal, and also as being advaita, non-dual. We have already discussed the unchanging nature of atma, and we explored it in a previous guided meditation. But what about advaita, non-dual? What does it mean to contemplate on atma's nature as being non-dual? Well, Vedantic texts say that non-duality depends on the absence of three different kinds of duality. Those kinds of duality are known as sajatiya bheda, vijatiya bheda, and swagata bheda. These are highly technical terms, and they need some explanation. Bheda means difference. Sajatiya bheda means difference between similar things, like the difference between one apple and another apple of the same variety. Vijatiya bheda means difference between dissimilar things, like the difference between an apple and an orange. Swagata bheda means internal difference, or differentiation, like the difference between an apple's skin and its seeds. Now, let's apply this teaching to atma. For atma to be non-dual, it must be free from all three kinds of duality, all three kinds of bheda. To say that atma has no sajatiya bheda means that there is no other atma, no second consciousness. Atma is one without a second. To say that atma has no vijatiya bheda means that there is nothing else other than atma. There is only atma. That is, atma alone is real, and everything else is not real. In your dreams at night, you experience lots of things, buildings, trees, people, and so on. But none of them are real. The only thing that's real in your dreams is you, the dreamer. And like you are the only reality in your dream world, atma is the only reality in this waking world. Finally, to say that atma has no swagata bheda means that atma has no inner parts, no features, no attributes of any kind, as we discussed before. This is a profound philosophical analysis, but Ashtavakra's teachings here are meant for contemplation and not for philosophical analysis. So, instead of discussing this any further, we'll go on to the next verse and then come back to this particular teaching for our guided contemplation later. Deha bhavana pashena, deha bhavana pashena, chiram baddhosi putraka, chiram baddhosi putraka, bodhoham jnana khadgena, bodhoham jnana khadgena, tannikritya sukhi bhava, tannikritya sukhi bhava. In the second line, putraka, O dear son, chiram, for a long time, for many years, baddha asi, you were bound. Ashtavakra refers here to the time before King Janaka met Yajnavalkya and gained enlightenment with the help of the Rishi's teachings. Back then, King Janaka was indeed bound to a life of suffering. Bound by what? By the pasha, by the strong ropes that imprisoned you, O king, the ropes of deha abhimana, false identification with your body and mind. Due to ignorance of your true nature as pure consciousness, you naturally identify with your body and mind, and you misinterpret your embodied experiences in ways that lead to suffering. That's called bondage. Fortunately, with the help of Yajnavalkya's teachings, tat nikritya, you, O king, you broke free from those ropes of false identification. You freed yourself from bondage. How? Jnana khadgena, by wielding the sword of knowledge, by destroying the false identification with your body and mind. And the particular knowledge that can destroy such false identification is bodha aham. I am pure consciousness, atma, utterly independent of the body and mind. This metaphor reveals a really important point about that so-called sword of knowledge. The sword represents the scriptures in general, and the highest wisdom of the ancient rishis in particular. But the important point here is about the one who actually wields the sword of knowledge. You are the one who wields the sword of knowledge, not your guru. Your guru received that sword from his guru, and then he gave it to you so that you can wield it to sever the ropes of false identification that bind you. Let me explain. You wield the sword of knowledge in your practice of self-inquiry, atma vichara. During that practice, you destroy false identification with your body and mind, and you discover your true nature as pure consciousness. But no one can make that discovery for you. Only you can discover who you really are. Your guru is a one who empowers you to be successful in your practice of self-inquiry by giving you that powerful sword of knowledge. That's a really good metaphor. It has its roots in a famous verse from the Mundaka Upanishad. Vidyate hridaya grantihi. The knots of your heart are severed. Chidyante sarva samshayaha. All your doubts are cut away. Kshiyante chasya karmani. And the bondage of karma comes to an end. Tasmin, when? Drishte paravare. When you discover the truth of all. When you discover your true nature. Ashtavakra concludes with a simple blessing. Sukhi bhava. Be happy. Because he knows that Janaka has already wielded the sword of knowledge to gain liberation. Okay, now it's time for us to practice nididhyasana. Today we will contemplate on the non-dual nature of atma. Before we begin, please pause this video right now and practice your favorite meditation technique to make your mind extremely quiet and focused. Then you can return to this video and listen with your eyes closed. Okay, now we're ready to begin. As we discussed, atma cannot be referred to as a he, she, or it in the grammatical third person. Atma can only be properly understood in the first person as I or me. Atma is your essential nature as a conscious being. Atma is the consciousness that enables you to know what I'm saying right now. When we stop using the third-person perspective, we leave behind the realm of things. We leave behind the third-person realm of ideas and concepts, including the realm of philosophical analysis. On the other hand, when we adopt a first-person perspective, the perspective of I and me, then we enter the realm of experience, personal experience, your own experience. So, in today's contemplation on the non-dual nature of atma, we will not use a third-person philosophical approach. Instead, we will use a first-person approach, a purely experiential approach. To get ready for this exploration, just listen at first. Each sound of Om arises in pure consciousness. Each sound of Om lingers in pure consciousness for a few moments, and then it fades away into pure consciousness. See the truth of this statement. Om. 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 Before each sound of Om, you are present as pure consciousness. During each sound of Om, you are present as pure consciousness. And after each sound fades away, you remain present as pure consciousness. See the truth of this statement. Om. Om. In between the sounds of Om, what do you experience? In those gaps of silence, when you remain present as pure consciousness, do you experience the presence of anything else? In the gaps of silence, there is nothing else present in your experience. You alone remain present as pure consciousness in the absence of anything else. See the truth of this statement. Om. 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 In the gaps of silence, do you find any particular features, any distinctions, any parts, any kind of variation? Om. 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 In the gaps of silence, there are no features, no distinctions, no parts or variations present in your experience. See the truth of this statement. Om.